Back in Florida, we drove all day, all night. We did it with its own like Donkey Kong. Why do we compete to win? Why do we do the things that we do? Come on now, somebody. Stay tuned for this mindset, mission, ministry, and movement. Let's get it on.
Todd is not only a remarkable, successful 30-year titan in business with having multiple businesses that generate multiplied millions of dollars.
And if that plan happens to be to build $1 million company, which I can help you do.
But he's humble. He's a man of God. He's a family man.
The world's news organizations are built on everything but positivity.
He is an influential entrepreneur and business figure for over 30 years.
I've got to forecast. I've got to pronounce. I've got to project. I've got to share with you my ideas, my vision, my goals for not only myself, but for you.
That's why he's came up with his incredible concept of taking and creating a platform for people that are wired differently.
And you got to understand that your habits of your person and your habits of your business and your habits of your spirituality have to lead to the North Star of who you are. We need to figure out who we want to be in life.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. It's Wired Differently time. That's right. Look alive. It's Wired Differently time. And I've got so much to talk to you about this morning. I can't wait to share it with you. Good morning. My name is Todd Saylor, and I am the author of the book, The Brand and the Attitudinal Disorder, Wired Differently. Today, I want to talk to you about the scripture verse, 1 Peter 3:15. I want to talk to you about 1 Corinthians 9:24. I want to talk to you about a lot of things. But first, I want to share something with you. I want to share a story. I want to share a heartfelt story with you. And the best thing I can do right now is actually play the video. And I've got to tell you, my friends, I have got a technical difficulty here with my my Facebook, and I am going to have to reset, and we're going to come back with some serious energy. So stand by one moment. Stand by one moment. I'm back. God bless you guys. I got to tell you, man, I've been on the road for 3 weeks. I come back to my studio and all my stuff is whopper jawed. And I just want to tell you, while I talk to you, I'm going to pull up this video because I'm super excited to share it with you. And we're going to kick this thing off. I want you to understand that we're going to talk about why we compete to win, not just that we do compete to win, but why we compete to win. And this is why I wanted to kind of break this down to you. I've got a message I'm going to be giving tonight over at the IMG, and I wanted to actually just share some things with you, and I wanted to share with you what I'm going to be sharing with them. And here we go. I want to bring this video up to speed for you guys. Let's break this out and give me a break here, man. Come on, give me a break here. Here we go. Click here. Chad, I know you're cringy, but don't worry, man. You guys, listen, I'm not even going to fret over this. Listen, the bottom line is good morning, Greg. Good morning, Nicole. Good morning, Abby. Good morning, Joe. Good morning, Mark. This is one of those things that when we're in business and we're in life and things don't exactly go right, we have to actually dig in, dig hard and not give up, right? So what happened with my system here is a Facebook had a glitch, flipped into StreamYard, and then basically cut me out of my entire screen of StreamYard. So I had to reboot, and I brought you guys back. And so I want you to understand, I do have excitement for you. I do love what I do. And I actually kind of look forward, good morning, Chris, to like digging out of stuff like this. But I want you to understand today why we compete to win. And we're going to talk about that. And I want to set you up with a beautiful story. And I want you to understand that this is a message that I gave in, let's see, Caesar's Palace. And it was in basically, I want to say 3 years ago. And it's an amazing story about a little boy in a race. And it's this idea how I want to parlay 1 Corinthians 9:24 and 25 to you. And I want to tie in 1 Peter 3:15, but in your heart, revere the Lord, right? And so how do we put these things together? How do we make our life, our morning go the way it needs to go? Especially when it starts off kind of wacky like it did this morning, right? For me. But literally, I got up this morning and I had a great day. I have everything going. We just had a little glitch here, and I gotta give a shout out to my good friend Chad. He's going to be on hopefully this morning watching. Good morning, Cindy Romaneres. Good morning, Cindy. Good to have you, Cindy with an S. All right, so I'm just going to lay this YouTube video out. This is actually me giving the story of the boy in the race. And the reason I want to play this story now, I'm going to be actually telling the story tonight to close to 100 young men at the IMG Academy. But I wanted to set up today with this video. I wanted to set up today with this story. Good morning, Luther. It's been a while. Good morning, everybody. Brian Dickman, good morning. Hey, some of y'all missed just the Whopper Jaw. Get it up, get it going. It's on like Donkey Kong, but we're ready to rock and roll. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about 1 Corinthians 9:24, how I can grow you personally, spiritually, and profitably in the show and in this morning. I am super excited to be home in Florida. I'm super excited to have all you viewers on here today. So let's set up 1 Corinthians 9:24 through 25. And then I'm going to break this video down, and I'm going to break down 1 Peter, and we're going to bring it all together and how we can grow our mornings personally, spiritually, and profitably. So we got everything lined up here. Let's see what we got. You're going to love this video. This is me at Caesar's Palace speaking to $1 million business owners and how to grow themselves. They thought they were coming to get a message on how to grow themselves in a profitable way only, but I set them up with this idea of how to actually grow themselves with a critical belief. We must have this foundation of critical beliefs, the little boy in the race. So let's watch this and let's see how this goes, all right? The little boy in the race. Little boy came up one day and he said to his father, he says, Dad, I want you to understand there's a race. There's a big race that's coming out of the elementary school, and I want to be a part of it. All the kids are going to be in. And the father said to the son, he said, listen, I know you can do this. I know you believe, but you've got to prepare. That 440-yard dash is a long way around the track. And the son said, yes, Father, I believe. And here's what I want you to do. Every day after school, I want you to go run one lap around the track. And you've got to get to the point where you got to be able to run the whole lap. So the little boy for the next 2 weeks went down to the track all by himself. Finally, the big race day came, right? And he's at the race line. And he says, Father, what if I can't? The father said, listen to me. We believe and we've prepared. But Dad, they're taller and they're bigger. He says, none of that. We got this. When you get to that first corner, I want you to come out of that first corner, look for the second corner. When you come around that second corner, I want you to realize you're going to be in last place. And once you're in last place, I want you to understand they're going to start to slow off. They're going to start to drop. They're going to start to drop behind the bigger, fastest runners. Just do what we practice. And when you get halfway through the race, you look up at that press box and you know you're halfway done. And you're going to start to be moving up on some of these bigger, faster, stronger boys. Just stay the course, my son. I believe you. When you get around that third corner, son, I just want you to look for me because I'm going to be in the fourth corner and I'm going to see you there. I'm going to have a smile on my face and I'm going to have my hand up this high. Son, do you understand what I'm saying? Yes, Father. And when I drop my hand. All I want you to do is run. And I don't want you to ever look back ever again in your life. I want you to understand that. Can you do this? Yes, Father. I can do that. Runners, take your mark. Sit. The little boy took off just like his father said. He went around the first corner, came around the second corner, and he was in dead last place, just like his dad said. His dad knew. He came about halfway around the track, and there he was. He moved up to third place. Coming around the fourth corner, he looks for his father desperately, and there's his dad with his hand up, held high in the air. He dropped his hand. The little boy ran. Whatever he had, he didn't look back. He couldn't feel his heart. He couldn't feel his arms. He couldn't feel his legs. And he crossed the finish line, just passing the last bigger, faster, stronger boy. Fell over the center line, and there was his father miraculously. And the father picked his son up, and he said, "Well done, my son." And the little boy said, "Dad, I did it. I finished the race." The father then said, "Look back now, son." And all the little boy could see was bigger, faster, stronger, sitting on the side of the track, walking across the finish line. You see, the little boy knew more about life than most of us probably in this room until we think about it. He didn't just run 440 yards. He ran further. Which brings us to critical belief. My critical belief. And I hope that you could share this with me. It's not just the efforts that we make, but more the distances we're prepared to go.
It's not just the efforts that we make, but more the prepared to be the distances that we're willing to go is a critical belief. And I certainly want to talk about that this morning, but I want to reflect on that story. I want you to understand that that story I'm going to be telling at IMG to 100 young high school students in one of the most competitive school systems for athletics in the world, if not the most competitive athletic school system in the world. I think it's a tremendous privilege to be able to go there and speak. And so I started thinking about, well, what could I talk to these young men about? And I have so many things that I'd love to share. So this morning is probably going to be less about business and more about your competitive desires. It's going to be more about how we are going to compete in our businesses, how we're going to compete for our families, how we're going to compete just in life, right? Because I think that if you're going to be successful in business, you're going to be successful with relationships, you're going to be successful in anything that you're going to be working on, you need to understand that you have to have a certain tenacity, a certain drive, a certain ability to compete, right? And so the reason I'm pulling this all together, and the reason I really feel compelled to talk to you about what I'm going to talk to them tonight about, is because when I opened up scripture this morning as I prepared for them tonight, I read 1 Peter 3:15. But in your heart, revere the Lord. Right? But in your heart, revere the Lord. You could stop right there and you could do an hour, 2 hours, whatever. In your heart, revere the Lord. But Peter goes on and he says, always be prepared to give an answer to everyone that asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have, and that you do it with gentle and respect. Right? And so gentleness and respect. So basically what's happening here is we are being called to compete, right? We are called to be here competing. I'm thinking to myself, well, what are you saying to me? What are you saying? He says, but in your heart, revere the Lord. So if I want to revere the Lord, I want to understand the Lord, always be prepared to give an answer. So if I am preparing to do something, that means I am preparing to win. I am preparing to excel. I am preparing to give answers. I am preparing to be good. I am preparing to not lose. I am preparing not to be wrong. And so when you think about 1 Peter in this light, I think you have to actually naturally go to where you think you're going to be going tonight, and you want to share with people this whole idea of competing.
And so what happens is today I want to teach you on that story of the little boy in the race. And I want to take you to 1 Corinthians 9, 24 and 25. 1 Corinthians 9, 24 and 25. In Corinthians, right, Paul is writing a letter to the church of Corinthians, how to straighten up your act, how to get right on course, how to be learned again, and how to solve problems in the Corinthian church because people were straying. But in 1 Corinthians 9:24, you can't help but recognize what's going on here in the correlation of the story that we're trying to do today. I want you to understand in 1 Corinthians 9:24 through 25, the little boy in the race is played out in full force. At the end of the story of the little boy in the little race, the speaker gives a critical belief. And in this critical belief, the speaker talks about it's not just the efforts that we make, but more so the distances that we're willing to go. And so what I want to share with you this morning is First Peter explains us to obviously revere the Lord with all your heart and compete by being prepared to share the gospel while you have the hope. Compete in your life to be good, to compete in your life to go the distance, right? 2 Timothy 4:7, I have fought a good fight. I have finished the race. Now I will receive the crowns of righteousness that have been before me. This is like the whole triangle of what's going on. Fight the good fight, right? Revere the Lord with all your heart and be prepared to tell the truth, right? Now, I want you to understand in 1 Corinthians 9:24 why God has taught us and why Paul talks about competing. Because we are, in essence, athletes. We're athletes in God's word. We're athletes in our actions in life. We are athletes in all that we do. We watch and we worship athletes in this world all the time. I watch football. I watch other sports, not many, but I watch football and we revere these athletes. Everybody knows who Peyton Manning is, right? Everybody knows who a lot of these players are. You can name them, and Peyton Manning, his brother, and all these other athletes out there. That, I mean, we know their names because we revere them and we see them on TV and we lift them up. So these people have prepared and they have ran a race. And so I want you to understand that this little boy ran a race. This little boy prepared, right? He prepared. So we want to break this down. And here's what happens in 1 Corinthians when Paul is talking to the church of Corinth. I want you to be prepared. But he says, I don't want you to understand. I want you to get lost in the NFL. I don't want you to get lost in the Olympics. I don't want you to get lost in all these things. But I want you to understand we must revere God with all our heart. But as we revere these athletes, look at what they do. Many runners, verse 24, 1 Corinthians 9:24, many runners enter the race. Only one wins the prize. Many runners enter the race, but only one wins the prize. He goes on to say, so then run to win. So this scripture, Paul is actually reaching out to these students, reaching out to these athletes in Corinth, these people who need to learn. He's saying, listen, man, I want you to understand everything that you're doing, but I want you to understand you got to get it on like Donkey Kong. You got to get moving. You got to get it up, right? You got to, come on, Buttercup. Here we go. We got to go. I said, I want you to understand, but all these races that we're running, like the little boy, the race that the little boy ran, all the races that we're running in life, I want you to think about the races that you're running in life right now. The race at the job, the race at the gym, the race with the person across the street who's going to have the nicest yard, the race that you're going to do all kinds of things in the race, everything's a race, the competition that you're in, right? Many runners enter the race, but listen, only one actually wins the prize. I think about ice skating championships. I think about Olympic gold medalists. I think about the ski slopes. I think about the basketball teams. I think about all these people striving to win gold medals. But at the end of the Olympic Games in each event, only one actually wins the gold medal. Does that make sense? only one actually wins the gold medal. And so what Paul's trying to say is, listen, man, I need you to compete. I need you to prepare. I need you to get it on like Donkey Kong. I need you to train. He asks us to prepare in 1 Peter 3:15, and in 1 Corinthians, he asks us to prepare for the race as well. Right? So my question to you is, think about in your life right now, what are you preparing for on a secular world, in your business, in your personal life? What are you preparing for in those places? Because the little boy prepared. If you saw the race, the little boy prepared. He went out and he practiced and he practiced and he practiced until he came to game time. And then his father gave him the strategy, right? The strategy was to don't come out of the gates too fast. Keep your pace. Don't get out in front of the pack. Keep the leaders in front of you. And then when you get around that last corner, look for me, your father, and I will drop my arm. I will send you a message. And then what I want you to do is run with all your heart, right? Everything that you prepared for. Give everything that you have. Leave nothing on the field. Run to win. Don't ever look back. Give everything till you can't feel your legs, you can't feel your arms, you can't feel your heart. Do not leave anything on the field, right? Run to win. You see, God is saying in 1 Corinthians, he's like, give it all, leave it all on the field. Go get it on like Donkey Kong, let it rip, potato chip. Leave nothing to despair, leave nothing behind you, because if you're going to compete, if you're going to run, you might as well run to win, because only one is going to win. And so that's the secular world of winning. That's the secular world of Tom Brady and Peyton Manning and all these guys that are playing the NFL, and we watch and revere them. They're running to win the race, and they're working very hard, and the little boy did those things. But really what I want to focus with you on right now is this idea of what the word win means and what the little boy actually did in this race. As he crossed the finish line, he fell across the finish line. He collapsed and realized that he had won the race. But at the end, he also realized his father was there to pick him up. And the son said, I did it, Dad. I did it, Father. I finished the race. And the father said, well done, my good and faithful son. He said, now look back at the pack. And what the son realized is that he won the race, but he didn't win it because he was the fastest. He didn't win it because he was the biggest or the strongest. He won it because he had endurance. He won the race because everybody else had basically quit. They didn't have the gas to go as far as the little boy went. And so the critical belief in that regard was, it's not just the efforts that we make in life, but more so the distances that we're willing to go. And so I wanted to teach on that, because a lot of us are in a position right now in our lives and in our businesses that I don't want to say that we're struggling, but we're trying to figure out what all this means and how it's going to happen, and how are we going to get ahead of the next guy? How are we going to get our bank account where it needs to be? How are we going to build these things up so they make sense in our life and make all this hard work worth it? But see, what happens in 1 Corinthians 9:24, it flips to 1 Corinthians 9:25, and then God flips the script right here. He says, yes, verse 24 says, many runners enter the race and only one wins the prize, so run to win. We got that point. The little boy did that. We see these NFL players doing that. But then God says, he doubles down. He says, but hang on here. Verse 25, he says, athletes work hard to win a crown that cannot last, but we do it for a crown that will last forever. And so this is really the teaching point. This is really the teaching point, because I know I want to coach you to compete. I know I want you to endure. I know I want you to run to the end of the race like the little boy did. And I want you to go further than the competition. I want you to go all those things that we're talking about. But the title of this show is Why We Compete to Win. So if you look at verse 24 and you see verse 24 as a snapshot of of a secular world, if you will, to compete to win. So run to win. You might as well go to win because only one wins. Go get it. Be God honoring. Give it all you can. Leave it all on the field. But the reason we do verse 24 is so we can understand 25, because God is saying in verse 25, 1 Corinthians 9, verse 25, he says, athletes work hard to win a crown that cannot last, but we do it for a crown that will last forever. So the reps that we're doing in our personal life, the reps that we're doing in our competitive personal life, that fire that God has given us to run to win, is really what I want to parlay into verse 25, because what we've learned in 24, what the little boy learned in the race, what we're learning to give it all we have on the field is that God is giving us that willpower, that idea in verse 24 to win, to run, to win the race, because he wants us to translate that attitudinal disorder, that attitude, that fire to compete, to give it all we have. And he says, I want you to take that same fire now, and I want to flip the script, and I want you to look at what it really means, because that crown that you won in the race will only last for a little bit. So now take that fire that I gave you in verse 24, and I want you to put it in 25. I want you to take that fire in verse 24, and I want you to put it in 25. In 25 says, that athlete I was just talking about that worked hard to win the crown, that crown will not last for that athlete. Someone else will become bigger, faster, stronger. Somebody else will set a new record. Somebody else will be the new king, the new heavyweight title of the world. I want you to understand what we do for the crown will last forever. So what God is saying right there is that I want you to take that same attitude, why we compete to win in the secular world, and I want to take that attitude and I want you to put it into your fervor for God, for your spiritual and your scriptural world, your idea of growing yourself in this world spiritually. I'm not saying give up the competitive world. I'm saying take that fire that you have and parlay it, transfer it into your fervor and fire for God. And that's why we compete to win. That's why God gave us this idea to compete to win. That's why he allows us to have this attitudinal disorder to compete to win. And so what I thought I would do is close today with the acronym WIN. I wanted to break the acronym WIN down to how can we take our attitudinal disorder for our secular life and our compassion and our drive to win and move in 24 and move it into verse 25, where athletes work hard to win a crown that can only not last, but we do it for a crown that will last forever. How do we make it last forever? How do we win so we win forever? Well, that's what God is challenging us. That is what Paul was challenging the Corinthians with, and that's what I want to challenge you with this today in these final thoughts. So I want you to break down, if you're still with me, listen here, WIN, W-I-N, the 3 points of winning, right? The 3 points of why we compete to win. The 3 points of why we compete to win. Number one, W, right? This is how we win for God, for a crown that lasts forever. W, the willingness to serve. So I want you to understand that number one, W stands for the willingness to serve. I want you to be willing to serve. I want you to be willing to go the distance. I want you to be willing to look at God first. I want you to be willing to do all of these things in abundance for God first, right? Because everything else will fall in line. W, number one, stands for the willingness to serve God. Number two, I. Number two, I stands for the intentional fortitude and faithfulness. The intentional fortitude and faithfulness, right? We need to be willing to serve God because we want to go the distance. We want to be able to say we fought a good fight, we went the distance, and now we have to receive the crown of righteousness that God is talking about, that Paul is talking about in Corinthians. He talks about in 2 Timothy 4:7 to receive the crowns of righteousness because we went the distance, we fought the good fight our entire life. We want to actually win that race. of the competitive race that we've taught in verse 24. We want to translate into our competitive nature to win what's in 1 Corinthians 9:25. Here we want to transfer that competitive attitude, and we want to be intentional in our fortitude and our faithfulness, right? In our process of winning for God, winning for others, in our spirituality, our consistent spirituality quest. Willingness to serve, intentional fortitude, and faithfulness. Keep driving forward and stay faithful. Our willingness to drive forward and stay faithful. Our willingness to drive forward and stay faithful. And last but not least, never quit. Right? Never quit. Thank you, God, for not allowing me to quit. Hey, you know, we had to start this show this morning. It was a little rough, some technical difficulties. I could have quit. We've seen this before. You know, you're going to have rough starts sometimes in your life. You have to get out there and make things happen when you don't feel good. You may have a rough start in a race. The little boy in the race could have fell. He could have got back up. He could have stopped. He could have walked off the track. He could have gave up because he was in last place, and he just could have quit, right? We saw the story. We understand the story. We know where you're coming from. And I'm thinking to myself, I got to fight back. I mean, I got these demons in my head almost all the time. They're coming around and saying, you're not good enough. You just might as well just get out. You might as well just stop doing this thing wired differently. You might as well just stop trying to build the donut capital of the world. You might as well just stop thinking that Payserve is going to continue to grow to be the dominant forces. You might as well just stop trying to be the dude that you are because people aren't listening. I got to tell you something, man. I'm a little angry at myself right now because I'm feeling in the dumps because I had a bad start. Well, I got to tell you, never quit. Don't let those demons dig at you. Don't let them say that you're no good because there's a mistake you can't do. You know what? We got to get it up. We got to get it on. We can't let the things get in our way. I know a lot of you out there that are watching right now have stuff going on. I get text messages from you. I get emails from you. I want you to know I'm with you. I'm praying with you. But I got to tell you that there's only one person that can help you, and it's truly God, Christ our Savior. And the only way we can win that race forever is to accept Christ into our heart. To compete, to win a race that is everlasting. Do not let this world push you down. You are not of this world. You are misfits. You're wired differently. We compete at an entirely different level because we're playing for the kingdom. We're not playing for one crown that will not last. We're paying for a crown that will last forever and ever. Amen. I don't know why I get this way, but I love you that much. I'm glad to be back in Florida. I'm glad to get fired up. It's not the efforts that we make, but more so the distances that we're willing to go. I fought a good fight. I finished the race. Now is before me the crowns of righteousness that I've earned. 1 Corinthians 9:24-25. We do it for a crown that will last forever. That's why we compete to win, so that we know how to do it for God and His Word. Thank you for sticking on this show with me. Thank you for getting up in the morning. Thank you for taking this message out into battle for you today, because I'm here for you. And I'll see you tomorrow. We're going to have a great time tonight. Love to have you in my mastermind. Check me out at toddsaylor.com. Let's have a great day, you guys. God bless you. And let's run the race to win for the everlasting crown.